Alright, so you might have noticed that this is audio which is placed into the video and doesn't sync up with the Reliq that you're seeing on screen. Well, that's because this is Reliq from the future. And this is a Reliq that has recently moved house, as you might have seen from the various state of clutter behind past Reliq. And unfortunately, what happened is, in the setup for this interview, past Reliq forgot how to do this. And only realized that his audio pickup wasn't actually working until about, say, a few minutes in. So, bear with me while I try and fill in the gaps. Don't worry, the lovely Justin Groot, who is alongside me, he's hearing what I'm saying, which is something to this effect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a lovely little bit of SIDE VIVE. It's still your podcast for everything super, just in a slightly smaller size. Still packed with value, though, and I made a big point of going Justin Groot. I was very happy with how I pronounced his name, and so was he.
I'm doing amazing. I can't believe you pronounced my last name right. Who told you it was Groot and not Groot? That's crazy.
So here I pay a complimentary mention to Oh Hey Spun's original interview with Justin, and that's how he pronounced it. I had a feeling that it might be Dutch in origin.
Yeah, it's Dutch. It's Dutch.
I had a relevant story to share. Essentially, my background, like when you trace back my career before TOing, before casting SUPERVIVE or Pokemon Unite, my original goal in life was to become the next commentator for Formula 1. Essentially, I had my history teacher telling me, yo, you got a good voice for radio, you should maybe try and find some opportunities, and opportunities even back then were difficult to come by. So I tried to forge my own path. I found various sim racing leagues, and within those leagues were a bunch of different European and foreign names, which I took the time to learn and perfect, one of which being a guy called Ruud Heesterbeek, so there was double E's in there. Dutch guy, lovely guy, took the time to teach me the name, and that's where I sort of drawed the comparisons.
That's awesome. I was gonna ask, I know this isn't a Reliq interview, but I was curious what your background was in other casting, because I've always loved esports and working with shoutcasters, and I feel like I found a lot of kindred spirits in that space. Like I used to play Magic the Gathering with some of the Overwatch casters.
So this is the last of the gaps which I'm going to need to fill in. I thankfully recognize that my mic is not picking up anything. I think Justin found it funny though, didn't you, Justin? There you go. Bit of fun in post. But yeah, we were very much kindred spirits in this moment. We both have a love of esports. We both have a love of narrative, and I was very complimentary. It was very kind of him to have an interest in what I was doing. But I very quickly flipped it back around. You know, we're here to learn about Justin, here to learn about his journey. And I had a look through a bunch of his work, and it's really interesting, the humble beginnings that he starts out with, going all the way through to eventually becoming one of the narrative leads for Overwatch 2, let alone, of course, then moving on to Theorycraft Games and SUPERVIVE. And so effectively this was the real starting point of our chat, of our discussion, learning more about Justin Groot, the guy. Starting with, again, in those humble beginnings of being an editor in esports, effectively, just writing articles, to becoming a creator of lore, of worlds. I'm sure you'll find it as fascinating as I did in this moment.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess I've always been into creative writing. I always wanted to write books. As a kid, I read a lot of books, and so I did a lot of that in middle school and high school, and then in college I kept writing, and I was on the newspaper, and yeah, I had like a buddy who knew a buddy who was looking for people to write for Evil Geniuses. I guess that's like my other thing was always competitive video games, so I was a huge StarCraft 2 player in college and started the collegiate team at my school, Emory, and we were competing against the other schools. Like our biggest achievement was defeating MIT in StarCraft. We were so pumped about that. And yeah, so those were the glory days, and because we were so into StarCraft, we like were following the esports scene and going to the tournaments and stuff. And anyway, Evil Geniuses needed people who were willing to work for like $25 a month, you know? So college students were perfect for that. So I got to like interview J-Dong and like all this crazy stuff. And yeah, that was kind of the start of my esports journalism experience. And after school, I got a job in kind of more like traditional business. I was like a consultant working on projects for telecom companies like mobile carriers like Sprint or AT&T. And in my free time, I was basically writing esports journalism freelance. And I got a couple of bylines in Rolling Stone's short-lived esports vertical Glixel, which was really fun. And at that time, I think I was mostly covering the like Super Smash Brothers Melee scene, and I got to do profiles of some of the big players from that scene. And yeah, that was really cool. So at a certain point, I was like, you know, I just want to write more. I don't care what it is. I want to write more, and in my like day-to-day. And so I found this cool job opportunity at Blizzard to work for their website department. And I applied to that. And I think the combination of like, you know, founded the StarCraft Club, like Rolling Stone bylines, like, or whatever, like they gave me a shot. They brought me in to write the websites. I had a lot of fun doing that. I got to work on like the Overwatch 2 website. When that was first announced, I got to, you know, StarCraft Remastered. I did a whole bunch of articles for them in addition to writing the like, you know, marketing copy. And I think that was kind of my way into the industry because once I was at Blizzard, I was able to start volunteering myself to do more of the creative writing for the teams that didn't have as many resources. So like in that time frame, some of these teams were in the classic games department were kind of like a little bit smaller, and they needed folks to do stuff like write flavor text for all the war chest items in StarCraft 2, and that was obviously a dream come true for me. So I started doing that kind of stuff and volunteering myself out, and eventually built enough of a portfolio and rep internally for that I was able to get a temporary assignment working on the Overwatch team. And I just like worked my butt off, tried really hard, and they ended up giving me a full-time offer. So that was kind of the saga there. And then I was on the Overwatch team for a few years and ended up having some other experiences at Tencent, and then landed at Theorycraft.
I love how honest that entire like you were such an integral part of Blizzard narrative on Overwatch, especially. It's just sort of like we're jumping over all of that, but it's such a large part, I guess, as well of that journey, and has led directly to this. That it's kind of like honest. The work speaks for itself. I think there's so many people who I at least have talked to who have enjoyed, especially Overwatch 2 recently, where they say that honestly that narrative and the push from a character perspective that has been seen and that has been really adored. And so I guess that must feel really good to know that your work on that game is, even to this point, still been so treasured and so loved.
That's really wonderful to hear. I'm very proud of the work that our team did. We had such a great narrative team. I think there's still a great narrative team on Overwatch 2. Yeah, it was awesome collaborating with some really experienced writers, some newer writers who were really passionate like me. Yeah, and we wrote so much stuff for that game. It was crazy. Like we had thousands and thousands of lines for every kind of situation imaginable. We did so many voice sessions, and yeah, I'm really proud of what we accomplished. But I can't take too much credit because, again, we had like a huge, awesome team working on that stuff. So yeah, it's great to be part of it.
From a huge, awesome team to a decidedly much smaller yet equally as awesome team that Theorycraft Games, it must be such a challenge in this role as you know, leader of narratives, to basically, because as far as I understand it, you have like concept art and you have some ideas from the team in general as to the world and what direction you want, but also, at least from the Oh Hey Spun interview, I sort of gleaned that there was so much free room to work with from your perspective? I mean, that must be quite daunting, actually, in a way, to have so much free space, as much as it would also be quite creatively freeing to be able to have a blank canvas to work with almost.
Yeah, I would say it is a little bit scary to have that much power, like on Overwatch, if you had a new idea, you got to bounce it off the other narrative designers, but then you also, the creative director and story and franchise development, and you have like historians whose whole job is to keep track of all the timelines and consistency and making sure everything lines up. And then, so here at Theorycraft, working on SUPERVIVE, I am the only writer, the only creative writer, and the only narrative designer. And if I have an idea, I was very stunned in my early days to be like pitching things to the other creatives, because I work very closely with the art team. I report to the art director, Josh, who's amazing, and he's the source of a lot of the world lore, along with the narrative designer who used to work. I didn't work at the same time as Mary, but I think I'm building on the foundations of everything that she, contributed. Anyway, so like I would come in and just pitch these ideas and be like, so what do you think? And I'd be used to this experience of like, a bunch of feedback and knocking it around, trying a bunch of different things, getting it to fit in the broader patchwork. Instead, at Theorycraft, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. Ship it. Like move on, let's move to the next thing. And that's crazy. Like a lot of the VO scripts I write, they used to go through all these processes. I'd be really proud to finish a script in a week. Like there have been times on this project, like my first week, I wrote like 8 scripts. There was like an early version, and I would like totally rewrite it. So that was a big transition for me, but I found it really fun, and it's action packed. It's getting to write on a bunch of different things all the time, come up with new ideas, and because the world is so new, it's easy to you don't have to worry about collisions as much. It's not like this can conflict with something else you've established. That's a problem for maybe a couple years down the line. For right now, like it's all working in totally undefined space.
But as somebody who is well ingrained in a number of fandoms which have been built over decades worth, trust me, there is nothing worse than canon arguments. So at the very, I would take 2 years over 20 years, 100%. At least you know that you can keep on the right track. But I mean, in terms of those tracks, I think a misconception that a lot of people might actually have is just how far-reaching your influence is within the company, because they look at lead narrative and they're like, oh, so you write the story, you create the lore, but it's so much more than that. We were talking in setting up this chat about how your work digs into the mechanics of the game, into various systems, and it makes sense to me now that you brought it up, and it's like, oh, that absolutely clicks. But onboarding, of course, tutorializing these new players into SUPERVIVE, that's a wonderful vehicle to deliver the lore and the first taste of the lore of this world, not just to them, of course, but to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I think narrative design is like, well, let me take a step back. So the way I think about my job as like a narrative designer is basically like a game design role. It's like, how do we make the game better? But the toolkit that we have is all these narrative and storytelling tools. And so I think it ends up touching like a lot of the game, because a lot of like pretty much everything in the game has theme and is represented as something more than just its mechanics. Like even something like the rescue turtle, right? Which is one of these effects that we have where you throw this little object and then somebody jumps on it and it pulls them to you. Like you can rescue your ally with this thing. Like somebody had to make the decision that it was a turtle. That was not me, that preceded me, but that's narrative design, right? Like that's sick. Like it's a turtle. It's a spirit turtle, I guess. It's like a mystical or special turtle. It has to be. I mean, it's some kind of turtle. Like, so that's a lot of the time that's my job as a designer, will be like, so we've put the art on this, or like we don't know what art to put on this. What should this be? Like how should we contextualize this mechanic? And I think that's where narrative comes in, is like you build a world that can explain what's actually happening in the game, and then not only that, but ends up giving the designers more inspiration, because once they know it's a turtle, like that could imply other things about the gameplay. You feel that really intensely with the hunters, with any kind of playable character, because it'll start out like with a design, you know, a design idea, maybe for a few abilities, and then we work like I'll work with the concept artist to come up with like what could the source of these powers be, and what could this person, you know, what could their history be, and what could their yeah, like I think for especially for design, it's about like what are they capable of, and what's the source of that, which can then in turn inform a lot of other aspects of the kit. So you get this nice synergistic back and forth going, and wind up with something very specific as a result. Sorry, a little bit of a ramble. But
I honestly, I absolutely love it, because it opens your mind up to not just Chonka Cannon, but why Chonka Cannon? Who's created the cannon? What is the Chonka? Like, is this some like omniscient god that has been immortalized in sort of like a pseudo sphinx form, but they're not too pretentious that they don't mind being fired out of Chonka cannons? Because I mean, when you got your air blasts and you got your avalanches, they're elemental powers, they're easy enough to explain, it's cool, deal with it. But then there's, like you say, is it a Teenage Mutant Spirit Turtle? Like there's so many like layers that you can dig into.
I mean, one of the things that I love about the SUPERVIVE world is that it is sort of by nature very mysterious and full of questions that the characters in the world don't have answers to. And that's because it's a world with an enormous amount of history that's been shaken up. So, you know, we talk about it as like it's a world with 25,000 years of history, much of which has been like lost. And then on top of that, at the end of this wonderful golden age that came after eons of history, you know, there was this cataclysmic event that resulted in all the land masses being lifted up into the sky. And then that means that stuff that was buried, that nobody even knew was down there, like is suddenly freed and it's surfaced. So the Chonker cannon, you know, it's certainly drawing on some kind of mystical Chonker power. Like the cannon that you place is really more of like an altar or an idol or something, and it has a portal through which these rocks are being summoned that have, you know, like a little bit of a face on them, and they make a meowing sound. Like, what is up with that? Like, I don't think we have an answer for that yet. Like, there's questions we don't have an answer for beyond like the shape of it. But yeah, I think that's pretty fun, and we want to keep that. We want to keep that feeling of like mystery, of possibility off on the fringes, because that serves our game really well, right? If we want to add a new character, it's very helpful for us to be able to not to have like a set map that's like, this is all the parts of the world that exist, but to say like, we don't know what's over there, because that gives us potential.
Writing and directive lessons come to mind. Show, don't tell, and also some things are best left unsaid. So maybe we should leave it there about the Chonka cannon lore. I'm sure you can concoct some ideas.
I can develop some more. If the people want it, I can come up with some more specifics for sure.
There you go. If you want your Chonka cannon lore, comment and like the video, and maybe we'll make a follow-up based purely on the lore of the Chonka cannon. But of course, I think what the majority of the players will more, I guess, relate to are the characters themselves, are these hunters. I know we, in this previous interview, I think this is a bit of a spiritual successor in a way, where we're learning more about you, but also we're, 6-7 months on from that interview at this point as well. So we've learned things about Aluna and her moon powers. We've learned things about Felix and the clan that he comes from, how he's completely unspectacular, and actually that in of itself makes him a little more interesting actually as a character. But we've also had so much more VO work since that time, and we've got this incredible array of voice actors that have come into, especially with the newer hunters that have arrived as well. We've got Christina V with Bebo, for example, Alejandro Saab with Saros, and it makes me really excited to learn the caliber of VO that you're working with, but what's your personal experience in sourcing these people out, identifying the right people to fill these very diverse roles, and how much prep goes into these sessions as well? Because I imagine it's not just a case of here's your lines, go read them, that's that, because I imagine linking back to the things such as tutorialization and all of these different mechanics, there must be so many more layers that players won't hear about for 3 to 4 months that might need to be covered in this session.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. Yeah, the VO sessions are a tremendous amount of fun. Working with these awesome actors is so much fun. I think where to start. So a lot of our casting process, so to find the actual actors who we're going to work with, and we work with these incredible SAG-AFTRA actors, so they're union actors. And one of the things I'm really proud about is that Theorycraft signed the interim agreement with basically these actors who were advocating for better compensation, and we were one of the few studios to do that. I'm not sure at this point, maybe more have, but at the time, it was somewhat uncommon. Because we really believe in supporting these artists and making sure that they're compensated fairly. As a result, we've gotten some incredibly top tier actors to play characters in our game. A lot of that casting is handled by we have a partner who where we do all our recording. It's a recording studio called SIDE. And so we'll basically give them like a casting sheet, and it says like, hey, here's, the details about the character. And by that point, we've done a whole bunch of preemptive work, figuring out who the character is. We have concept art that we can share with them. I'll write an audition script. And then we get, so they'll kind of, I don't know, they have some arcane process for surfacing this information to the voice actors in the world out there, and then they'll get a bunch of auditions and they'll comb through them and give us kind of like a short list of the people they think will be good. And so all of that it'll be like, we'll have references to other examples of similar voices in TV and movies, and like what the character's motivations are, and a bunch of descriptions of their vocal attributes. And so what we wind up with is a big list of actors who submitted auditions. We listen to those auditions, try to match it, and figure out who's going to be like the best voice for this character. And that's something that we get a lot of feedback on. Different people on the team will kind of listen and they'll weigh in. A lot of the time it comes down to much of the stuff on Hunters comes down to like, so me representing narrative, and then the artist who did the concept, and then the designer who's actually working on the kit. So when those three folks are pretty much aligned, that's when we know like, okay, this is the actor we want to go with. And that's awesome. That's completed our casting process. So then we go to the actual session, and we have insane sessions because we try to get everything done in one voice session, which is 4 hours. And that's kind of nuts. On Overwatch, I would be very pleased if we got through 150 lines in a single voice session, and we would do multiple sessions. And when we were casting actors, we would also do, kind of like, part of the casting and audition process would be, we would do like a session to see how it went. And then that would be mostly just to zero in and decide like, is this the person we're going to do? So at Theorycraft, we try to no-scope it. We try to get it in one. We basically are like, we think this actor is going to be great. Let's just go. We'll get all 250 lines, all the nonverbal stuff. We'll get it in one 4-hour session. And honestly, we've been pretty successful at that, which is impressive and surprising to me, and I think speaks to the quality of our actors and also the quality of the director that we work with, Josh Dean, who is a legend and my good buddy at this point, because we've spent a lot of hours in the booth, like kind of being like, well, how should they actually respond to this or that situation? Like, what's the emotional architecture here? And like, oh well, the gameplay implication of this line is that it needs to be, it needs to convey this information to the player. So maybe we should say it this way, blah, blah, blah. It ends up being a really creative exercise and a really sort of like, you're finding it as you go, and the actor is contributing their ideas, and Josh, as the director, is contributing his ideas. And I'm trying to like figure out what we end up taking. And it turns into a little bit of organized chaos. But thus far, we've managed to get every single character done in a single voice session.
I was going to actually ask about the roaming of improv that actors can bring to a set. I mean, both with regular acting and voice acting, and I imagine with the tight constraints that you're attempting to work to at the very least, that might limit creativity. But it also just from what you say sounds like a very harmonious project every single time, where you're not necessarily going on a huge tangent, but you're trying to work together to identify the best things to walk away from that session with. I guess what comes to mind immediately is there a particular moment with a voice actor where they have suggested something and that has directly made its way into the game yet?
It's a little hard to speak of or to think of a specific example of that, because to me that is the default sort of approach. It's maybe not like sometimes there are definitely cases where actors will suggest like saying something a different way because it feels more natural to them. But yeah, I think I think a common pitfall in directing voice sessions is to be too inflexible about like how you heard the line in your head, and then trying to force the actor to do that exact read, as opposed to I think you get much better stuff if you sort of respect their artistry and like you give them the line as sort of a starting point, and they give you some reads that are their different ideas for this based on their understanding of the character. And the best stuff I've found tends to be stuff I didn't expect. So it's like, it's not the way I heard it in my head, you know? Maybe it does make a few little changes to the line. Maybe it has like we call it like a pre-life, if there's like an additional sound at the start, you know, like a or like a laugh or whatever. Yeah, adding all these kinds of little things and doing their own little spin on the line and taking it in this unique direction that feels right to them, that's what ends up creating something that's very memorable and unique and full of life, as opposed to just woodenly being like, no, could you say it more like this? That never works. That's like voice acting, voice direction cardinal sin number 1 is like giving someone a read. So yeah, it is a very harmonious process, and I think, like, especially when you're working with such amazing actors, like they bring so much to it. We just gotta basically provide them the context they need to do their work, and once we've done that, they tend to just slay it and come up with awesome stuff all the time.
You can definitely tell that it's a wonderful place to be. There was this voice acting trailer that was released. This like behind the scenes where, you know, sometimes out there in the industry these things can be a little bit manufactured, but actually then you hear the quality of performance. You hear these stories of behind the scenes naturally with the development team being as open as they are, and you just know that it's such a great environment to work in. And I've got to give you and Theorycraft the flowers of signing that agreement. I mean, there's so many horror stories right now across the industry. I think looking particularly at the Hoyoverse situation, where you've got voice actors being replaced left, right, center, and impasses, and to know that these actors have got that guarantor, you know, to know that they are going to be safe, that there'll be no, you know, vocal replication with AI is it's wonderful, not just for them, but I think for an audience wanting to get involved with SUPERVIVE, this is a great, clean project and product to invest your time into. So you guys do amazing work, and I guess speaking on behalf of people, thank you for taking those steps, because like you say, not many are.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's worth the investment. Like, really good voice acting, I should say this, like, voice acting that is not up to a certain bar can detract a lot from the experience, and it can lead players to turn it off, at which point they're cutting a lot of the, like, voice acting is a big way that we convey the character of these characters, of the personality, like how it feels to play Oath is so much different because of his particular voiceover, and I think that makes the game a lot better. Like, I certainly came in and was advocating for that, like we should be trying to build a VO system that adds a ton to the player experience, that shows the personality of these characters. Like, obviously we've put so much effort in on the art side to make them really memorable and awesome. Like, the way they speak is a part of that, and a part of how the player perceives them. So yeah, I think it's just plain worth it to do stuff the right way, and to get really quality work. And Yeah, seems like a simple decision to me.
W Theorycraft, W SUPERVIVE. Let's head into a quick Whiplash round. I can't call it Quiplash, otherwise the creators of the Jackbox games are probably going to come after me at some point. But we'll try and keep this short and sharp. If you want to expand, though, feel free to. We've got as much time as you need.
I'm very bad at short answers, but I will do my best.
Let's go. Okay, who has been your favorite hunter to work on and why?
Oh, okay. Really hard. I would say recently, super duper enjoyed working on Carbine. I feel like Carbine's VO took off. It basically just went perfectly. It sounds awesome. Our sound team added great processing. So Carbine, if you're not aware, he's like a robotic bounty hunter. He was a human bounty hunter at one point, or actually, I'm not even sure if he was human. Yeah. So Carbine was a biological guy of some kind. He was running around. He was like maybe the most well-known and most successful bounty hunter. Had never failed a contract, until he found there was this one contract that in the process of pursuing it, he was almost killed, and as sort of a last resort, had to be transferred into this robotic body. So he's obviously a little bit upset about that and has some vengeance drive, and like really wants to go kind of complete, like, it's in his view like the contract has not been filled yet, like that target is still out there, so he's got to go find them. And yeah, that we may learn more about that particular target that he's after at some point in the not too distant future. Foreshadowing.
Whoa.
Yeah, so anyway, so that character was like one of our more villainous ones. We had this awesome voice actor, Amari Williams, who has this super deep, lovely voice. And we kind of like, we wanted to do a little bit of an homage to old Westerns and stuff. So his lines have a lot of like Western bad guy influence. And you can kind of imagine him at home on one of those prairies from all those great old Western films. And except kind of adapting that for more of our like super futuristic fantasy world. And anyway, I think it turned out awesome. The sound team came up with great processing. The acting was amazing. The gameplay kit's really fun. Everything about that character is sort of singing and working together. And yeah, I'm very proud of how it turned out.
Well, now I'm going to have to respond. Freaking awesome, by the way. It gives me echoes of one of my favorite Star Wars characters in General Grievous. So it's slightly different backstory in that, and this, to be fair, this, speaking of canon, this might not be canon anymore, but my understanding was this biological like chieftain of an alien race was hired by the bad guys because of his ability to muster armies in combat, is deliberately shot down in a shuttlecraft and reforged into a cyborg body to make him a more efficient fighter and capable of delivering a truly unbeatable fighting style that is anti-Jedi. But like to have this sort of, as you say, pseudo-villainous character, like a bit of a gray area at best, just makes the entire roster, I think, way more interesting. I know there's a lot of people, Carbine in the esports side of things, super meta right now, loads of people love him. Also, you get such a big thumbs up from me on Amari as the voice actor for Whole Horse in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in the
Absolutely.
English dub. Perfect casting,
legendary.
in my opinion. Let's go to the other side of it then. Who has been the most challenging hunter to work on and why?
Oh, really, really difficult question you're giving me there. I would say I sort of have like a cop-out answer for this, because I think that I think the way we do things, where we just have to move so fast, like we don't have really time to get challenged with anything. It's kind of like we have to make a decision, we move on. Like, as the only narrative designer on a game that's putting out hunters, like we've been doing one a month basically this year. It's kind of like you just got to take your best shot, lock it in, believe in yourself, and keep going. It's a lot like the Indiana Pacers, who keep winning these crazy comeback games when they're down 15 points. at the end of the basketball game. Like they don't stop to think about how unlikely it is that they're gonna make that comeback happen. They just do it. They just sat it out. They just decide they're gonna go for the best shot, and it keeps working out. And I feel like that's what we're doing on SUPERVIVE. We're just cruising, and honestly, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in the character space. I feel like we've released a number of we sort of only have bangers, in my opinion. Like all these characters have been super fun, and they've come out, and I'm pretty pleased with the results.
So I guess the official answer: challenge. What challenge?
I mean, definitely, like, it's hard, and like I think if we had infinite time, we would make adjustments sometimes, like because sometimes I think the challenge, if I'm going to articulate like a real challenge that we have, it's that you don't know exactly how something is going to sound until it's in the game. Because in the voice session, it might sound pretty good to you, but then you get it in the game and it might be like, oh, like maybe that's not, like, because the game situation is much different. There's all the other noises happening. There's just a lot of other stuff going on. So is it going to cut through? Like, these are the kinds of concerns and worries. I think working on Overwatch for so long and doing so many hundreds of hours of voice sessions for that, and like I've developed a fairly good sense of like what's actually going to cut through in the game, and at least like what are you going to hear, like, and what's going to be appropriate for how the player is feeling at a given moment. Like, I think it's really important to play a lot of the game you're working on for stuff like this, because those mismatches between like, well, I think the character would be feeling this and the player would be feeling this, but the VO suggests something totally different. Like, those moments can be very disruptive, which is why I think it's important to play enough of the game that you know how that's gonna feel. And I love SUPERVIVE, so that's not a problem for me. I love playing this game. Big Zeph main over here. Yeah, so... But anyway, I think in a perfect world, we'd do 3 sessions, and we'd implement all the stuff from the first session, and then we'd be able to follow up on it in the subsequent sessions and say, like, okay, this line was a little off, like, maybe we could fix that one. Instead, we kind of have to make the call of, like, do we just disable that if it's not quite working? Maybe someday we'll get to record again, and we'll bring it back or do another version, so, yeah.
Justin, what part of the world are you most excited to explore going forward? And that can be just an individual hunter, that can be an environment, that can be the lighthouse, perhaps, anything.
Yeah, so we have a number of awesome new hunters lined up for launch, and honestly beyond. We're starting to think about some of the ones after our 1.0 release as well. I'm really excited for players to kind of get their hands on those hunters and their VO, which is awesome. We have some more pretty legendary voice actors associated with some of these characters. So I'm really pumped for that. I'm really pumped for, we have another feature that we're adding, like a big feature. I think they've mentioned it. I think we've mentioned the armory. And that's going to have a pretty fair amount of narrative and framing, and a new character associated with that who's not a hunter. I don't want to give too much away quite yet, because some of this stuff is going to be ammo in our in our marketing efforts. But yeah, and I'm hopeful at some point. I'm not sure if this will make it in for 1.0, but at some point I'm really hopeful that we're gonna have the capacity to put hero bios or hunter bios on the pages for those hunters. Yeah, because we got all this stuff written up. I think one challenge is it's one thing to like generate all the material. It's another thing to figure out how to actually convey that to players in a way that's going to make the game better, right? Because it's not like the story and the lore, it's not a first order goal, right? Like, our goal is to make a really sticky and successful multiplayer competitive video game that holds people for ages. And lore can be a part of that. Like, understanding the connections between your characters can make the game more fun. It can make every little moment feel more meaningful. If you know these two characters really hate each other, and you manage to be one of them eliminating the other one, that like has more significance. Kind of like in Overwatch, if Tracer manages to get Widowmaker or vice versa, like that means something because you saw the cinematic with them and you know what their connection is. Or Genji and Hanzo, like these characters, they have connections, they have agendas. You can sort of like act that out. So for a lot of players, I think that's a compelling like layer. There I go, rambling again. But yeah, hope to get bios. Once we get some bios on the hunter pages, which It's just like our UI UX team is amazing. They also have so much work. It's crazy how much work they have, and they're doing some amazing things. So yeah, unfortunately lore not at the top of the list, but I think it's justifiable considering the other awesome stuff they're working on.
I'm looking forward to it. There is no need to apologize for rambling on my channel, good sir. You should have seen Zikaric's rant on the recent Hypervive podcast regarding just players and bugs and all that. Like, I think it was a solid 3 to 5 minute rant at that point. So
That's sick.
you are in
Great.
excellent company. Don't you worry. I'm really excited to hear about NPCs potentially being added in, or at the very least, these characters that we won't see in hunter form. For me, that just helps build out the world in a big way. But you mentioned, like, sometimes the time is quite constrictive. Sometimes you've just got to put the proverbial pen to the proverbial paper and get stuff done. What is your fuel? What is your food or drink that helps power you through those evenings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a coffee drinker. So I got my mug of coffee right here. But outside of that, I'll be honest, a lot of mornings I get up and I have a Huel for breakfast. I'm not trying to
not a sponsored segment
promote too much.
Although if they're willing to reach out, we could talk.
But I wake up, I'm very excited to start my work. I don't, I just want to like get into it. I'm very much an early morning person. I feel like I do my best work right when I wake up. So yeah, I'll just grab a Huel. I'm chugging that in our morning playtest. Just getting stuff done, man. I find it very I don't know if I find the work very creatively fulfilling, and I think for me, like, Theorycraft is a dream job, and I don't need a lot of extra like fuel or motivations, because like working on a game that I really love with a small team and like having a huge impact and getting to do crazy things, I think is like all the fuel and reward that I need. So
such a wholesome answer, and that love for the company and for the game comes across, don't you worry. We're gonna have a few questions now where I think no is an okay answer, by the way, but obviously if we are able to dig a little deeper, then please, by all means. Who's driving the bullet trains?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm gonna say it's basically people who work for the Lava Baron. So there's a guy.
Oh,
yeah.
Minions.
They're minions, and honestly, maybe they're autonomous, maybe they're remotely controlled. Like, but I kind of feel like there's maybe a little guy in there. That seems like the most fun answer to me.
Perfect. Yes.
And maybe he lives in there. Maybe he's not allowed to leave. Honestly, that sort of tracks.
Because it's as much a prison as it is a train.
It's kind of what I'm thinking. So one of the core that we can do some quick map lore. So what's the story behind the breach? So that's the name of our map, is the breach, and it is an archipelago of these sky islands that have kind of been pulled together for mysterious reasons, and people don't really know why, but like it's certainly always centered around the heart, so they think maybe it has something to do with that. But also nobody knows what the heart is. It's just this huge glowing green thing, so it's very mysterious. But one thing that's been observed is that these SUPERVIVE events, where enormous surges of magic are leaking out of the destroyed planet's core, they tend to happen, or they happen frequently, in this location. And it's not like linked to where the planet's surface is, because also the breach itself is like floating around and moving around. So wherever it goes, like, it seems like that's where the SUPERVIVE happens. So it's unclear like what the causality is there. But anyway, there's a lot of like, so every one of those SUPERVIVE moments releases tons of power. So this is obviously a very desirable place. And there is a warlord named the Baron Emorius, who has kind of claimed the map and is like determined to like rule over it and steal all of the power and like unearth all the relics on these special islands that have been assembled. And so he rules from the Molten Fortress, which is over on the west side of the map.
Yes.
And Chaos Steppes is his domain. So like that kind of lava-ridden wasteland is like, that's his favorite sort of environment. So you can kind of get a sense of like what kind of guy he is. He's sort of a brutal despot. He actually is our final boss. So when you fight the final boss, that's actually the Baron Amorius kind of emerging to try to claim the SUPERVIVE for himself. Frequently he fails, but he always comes back the next time. Yeah, and so the train is also related to him. So he actually, his minions built the train, and what the train is doing is it's like bringing loot from around the island back to his fortress.
Yeah, so is Kobayashi's his town?
No, so Kobayashi's is a totally different. Basically, that's like a very powerful merchant, but they sort of have a synergistic relationship a little bit because so right next to Chaos Steps, there's Imotech Industries, which is so Immo is like Amorius. Basically, the Baron is building stuff. You know, he's using the power and the resources from this map to build stuff, and then Kobayashi's will go sell that stuff to people.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. Kobayashi's.
I was thinking it would have to be synergistic because if the train is Amorius's, then it goes through Koba's.
That's right.
It doesn't necessarily stop. It never stops for no man, but it does at least go through the town.
That's right. So it's, you know, it goes through there, drops off merchandise that Kobayashi's will then sell. Like our world is very like, it's disorganized and chaotic, and there's not really a single dominant economy, but so there's like that's kind of how things are beginning to develop in our world, is that like you have the little warlords or little merchant guilds, and they're sort of beginning to build these systems that can distribute resources through the world. And yeah, that's just one small part of it. So
honestly, I love that all of that has come from who drives the bullet trains. I know there'll be some with a keen ear who have heard in the most recent patch. So for reference sake, we're recording this on June 6th, and we've recently had an update from the final Abyssal has spawned to the Lava Baron has spawned, and so now a little bit more context at least in Imotech, Imorius, just
it's all coming together.
It's
baby.
all coming together. It's like, this is amazing. Speaking of amazing, one of the best healing items in the game, Hypervive. Is it home-brewed or is it a brand? Is it like an energy drink?
Yeah, I think that one might be a Kobayashi special. I think they might, or like at minimum he's selling it. I don't know if he's making it, but basically it's a product that is distilling down some of this magic energy that we call Vive, and then they're packaging it up, probably adding some sweeteners, some herbal supplements, but really it's just like you're drinking magic. It's a magic drink, and somebody out there has started packaging it and selling it, so that everybody can get a little dose of that magic in their everyday life.
I'm just imagining this like Breach sports arena with like Hypervive like sponsor boarding around the edge of the pitch now, and it's an idea.
I could see that.
I think it'd be kind of fun.
I don't know. The thing is, like, with such a shattered and fractured world, I don't know how professional sports are doing. Like, but I bet there's some sports that are pretty popular and people are roving around.
Well, I've been dipping into, of course, we've got our wonderful Theorycraft partners over in Asia with Nexon and NetEase, and the Chinese site went up. And so they got, we literally talk about the little bios. There's little bios over there. And so, like, for example, I was reading up on Shiv, and admittedly, this might be broken translation. Like, I am not bilingual by any means, but they were talking about, like, the empire that Shiv comes from. And I'm like, would there be, like, a empire, I don't know, intergalactic football team? Like, are there sports going on outside of this broken world, maybe?
That's a great question. Yeah, does the Risen Empire have, like, a football team?
Yeah. It might be a money laundering
sure.
scheme for all I know, but, like, yeah,
I feel like they might. So the Risen Empire, they're Fae, and they kind of think that humans are, like, uncultured, foolish, short-lived. You know, they're just, I don't think they, like, hate humans, but they're just sort of like, humans, how ridiculous and short-sighted they are. You know, it's kind of like elves and humans in Lord of the Rings or something.
I was gonna say, like, very Tolkienian. Yeah,
I think there's a little bit of inspo for that. None of that, a lot of, and you know, you gotta pay credit where it's due. Like we're building on many awesome fantasy properties and inspirations for our game, for sure. But anyway, so I don't know if the Fae would play human sports, or if they would be like, no,
Sure.
like we have our own much more storied and immortal sports that have been played for millennia. Like we're not gonna play silly kick the ball games. Yeah.
Waste of our time. Tell you what isn't a waste of our time is arguably the most important question that I got for you on this list. Why does the carrot have butt?
Oh yeah, why does the carrot have a big butt? So I think wisps in general are like a representation of the hunter's like kind of inner essence, in sort of a mysterious way, you know, like so whatever you turn into when you're a wisp, you're basically in this like liminal stage at that point where you're kind of like, you're not totally dead yet, like your soul's still hovering around. And the reason that's possible is that you're anchored to the lighthouse, which is where all the hunters go in between the matches.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a weird like bug in the system where like your soul is showing, I guess. And so the question of like, why does the carrot have such a big butt would be like, for that particular, I guess the narrative explanation would be that for that particular hunter in that moment when they, you know, are on the verge of death, like the best depiction of their soul would be a carrot with a large butt.
I'll be real with you. I don't know what I was expecting in terms of an answer. That's probably as good as it could have gotten. The idea that this manifestation of one's self is just a very sad carrot with a big butt. Perfect. No notes.
I'm telling you, man.
Ship it.
People contain multitudes. I think the functional answer to the question is that our lovely art team and our partners who help come up with wisps, I think they were like, the fat butt will do well. Players will like it.
Yes, it will. And shout out to that art team, by the way. I think there has not been a single skin that has come out, especially that has not had fans in some corner of the community, and especially when we look at like the gold tier ones. My goodness, they are gorgeous.
I wanted to make this point, which is that like we have the sickest art team. We have the sickest everything team. Like I am so blown away every day by the skill and the passion and the talent and the experience of all the developers. Like I feel like a complete noob and an imposter next to my coworkers. Like these folks are crazy. Like they've worked on like a lot. There's a lot of people on the team who've worked on like my favorite games when I was growing up. Like people who were on like instrumental, not even on. They were like instrumental in Halo Reach and Halo 3, and of course League of Legends and like Overwatch long before I got there. And like it's crazy what a star-studded all-star team we have. And I think that's the only reason we've been able to build such a big game that like has such positive reception and reviews, and I hope a very bright future at release. Like it's because like even though we're a small team, we're a team of these like really impressive, experienced, passionate, competitive gamers who make me look like I just wandered in off the street.
No. I'm not going to have any of that. I understand your position. From where I'm sitting, you are working and having a significant say in one of my favorite games. So give yourself a pat on the back because you're doing amazing work as well. And I understand that there is work to be done today, of course, and so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. And so one final thing which I'd love to touch upon is essentially just what I like to call extracurricular material. And so you got the lore that will be presented in the game, you got the voiceover stuff, but we got our first look really at what people might associate more with your Apex Legends or your League of Legends, in that they have kind of cinematic trailers. And so they're, to this point, it's Korean exclusive, so you can find it out there on the interwebs if you want. But we basically got a visualization of Luna's backstory, and we're able to see the immediate set of events right up until her resurrection, her inheritance of these moon powers. And I'm just wondering what Western fans can expect both in the lead up to 1.0 and indeed beyond 1.0 in that realm, because I think right now the best that we can talk about is these bios that have gone out on the social media website previously known as Twitter, where it's nice to read, certainly, but that trailer was so cool, really stylized, and yeah, I think just generally people would love to see more of that. So feel free to share what you can, and don't worry if you cannot.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's been awesome to have such wonderful and passionate publishing partners. So we work with Nexon for Korea, like they're our publishing partner there, and they have so much energy and time, and they're investing a lot in these kinds of efforts, and so that's been a way to see, like, all of our partners have access to this narrative wiki that we've built on the inside that has like everything we know about the world, and so they're pulling from that and generating marketing materials, some of which are definitely very lore slanted, and it's been awesome to see. It's been really cool, and that we may look into some of that stuff in the future as well, but I think it's a little tough at our team size to generate something like that. Like cinematics are very expensive and
Yes, they are.
very time consuming. It's kind of crazy. Like, I think some large games, some of which I may have worked for, have spent probably more on their cinematics than we are going to spend on our entire game budget. So I think so I guess to turn it around, I would say, if you would like to see epic SUPERVIVE cinematics, I highly recommend telling all your friends about SUPERVIVE and showing up to our 1.0 release and getting everybody into it. And then once we are flying high and we have become, the huge successful live service game that we hope to be, then I promise you, I will do everything in my power to make some dope SUPERVIVE cinematics come to light.
You didn't even need me to tee you up. Love it. The guy knew exactly where we're going, and I think that's a perfect place to step off the proverbial bullet train and check in for work, I guess, in this case. Thank you so much for your time, Justin. What an absolute pleasure. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, you guys can, I guess I'm on Twitter at Justin Groot 3. What else? That's about it. I'm not really on anything these days. I'm just
the Discord.
I'm on Discord. That's true. You can catch me in the. I definitely lurk around in the SUPERVIVE Discord. Get in here. It's a good vibes. Yeah, you can find me on the ranked ladder in approximately platinum range. Playing Zeph usually. Yeah. That's it, man. I'm looking forward to a huge release moment. We're so excited for our 1.0, and just hoping we can make everybody extremely happy and pumped and stoked, because we love it. We love it here. We love the game. We want to make everybody. I mean, I guess another way to put it is, like, we thrive off of the players and their enthusiasm. Folks in the, like, what is his name? SSBM twin posting memes every day in our Reddit. Let's go, dude. I read those every day. That's part of my morning ritual. I get my coffee and I go to the Reddit and I look at the memes and I'm like, I am animated. I am ready for the day. I love reading all the lovely reviews people have left us, and I just want to make people happy. Like, that's why I stopped being a telecom worker and started being a more of a creative writer type. Like, I think everybody else on the team feels the same way. Like, we just want to delight players and make them joyful and help, like, build something that could be a source of great experiences and interpersonal connections, and stories, like the kinds of stories that we all have, because everybody on the team is a big hardcore gamer, and, like, we remember the epic Dota games from long ago, and the time we almost made Diamond in Valorant before we started feeding relentlessly and whatever. Like, we want to be a place where people can have those experiences and walk away, like, I think, with their lives richer because of it, and yeah, that's our aspirations.
You've certainly made like my life a lot better. This community is wonderful. Shout out to the wonderful Twin One, doing so much work on that subreddit with those memes. Keep it coming.
I just can't believe they're still funny after so many days.
He's still doing it. It's insane.
It's all bangers. It's crazy.
Every time.
Like, I know definitely personally how hard it is to continue being like entertaining and funny like day after day, but like he doesn't miss. Those are all winners in my book.
Absolutely. So yeah, keep up the good work, Twin. And I think we will do our best work on our side, of course, Justin, with narrative. I cannot relate more. Making people happy and just generating happiness in general is such a wonderful end goal for every single day. I do it through my work, you do it through yours. And so let's bring happiness to everyone. Tell people about SUPERVIVE, folks. He's been Justin. I've been Reliq. Like, subscribe. Hopefully we get more folks on here from the wonderful Theorycraft Games. Take care and have a good day.